Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at a book which has come to us from the Child Poverty Action Group. It's well known to many of you. We review a lot of their work. I'm particularly proud of the work they produce because I think it gives us the greatest amount of additional free advice in what is a very difficult area of social and welfare law, because most of the people who are seeking advice are amongst the lowest paid and the most poverty stricken in our society, and they need help, and they're the ones that can least afford to pay it. This book is the CPAG's book on Personal Independence Payment, the PIP. What you need to know, now in a second edition, been updated by John Shaw, and as I say, it comes from CPAG. Now, Elizabeth and I talked about the book, and we gave a title for our book review of this: What You Need to Know About Personal Independence Payment, a new second edition in the established CPAG Advice series. It's only a very small book. There it is there, paperback, and there's the spine, and then there's quite a lot on the back. Now, I'm just going to move it back a bit. Second edition, easy to use, jargon-free, useful examples. You can see what they're saying from the back of the book. There's a little bit of information and advertising. The book runs to 147 pages in total. The index, a short one, is page numbering, so you can find things quite quickly. There's not a lot of information in the index. Let's move to the front, because this is a relatively straightforward book and a very useful piece of advice. There's the first page. There's some information about the author. John Shaw is a welfare rights worker at CPAG in Scotland. There's some information about CPAG as well. And then there are various bits and pieces. That's more information about the group, charity, and getting advice. And then that's the content section. You can see what you've got there. You've got 10 chapters. You've got 3 appendices and then an index. And each chapter, like the house style for CPAG, starts off with a little structure of what the chapter covers. Then it runs into what you need to know, information. Bit of numbering, not a lot. What you do get is, with this, is you get, you don't have footnotes or anything like that, but what you do is you get examples. You get shaded areas with boxes to tell you a little bit about what you might be looking for, particulars and answer. What does this guide cover? It sets out again the purpose behind it in chapter 1, and then it runs through in that way. Okay, and right at the back you've got the appendices, one of which is, I think, the glossary of terms at the beginning, which is extremely helpful. Now, as I say, this is an important little book, and it's one that I think anybody who's involved in this particular entitlement should read the book carefully. You will find the book available in public libraries, CABs, probably some courts, and it certainly should be available in universities, I hope, as well, and other public organisations. It's not an expensive book to get, and if you're involved in the entitlement, you need to know the advice that is on offer. What do the Child Poverty Action Group do? Because I've represented a lot of the publications in my clips and in the book reviews which we've published on the web and in the journals. But CPAG have published a second edition of this particular work on personal independence payments to meet the needs of claimants specifically. And it's another guide in their excellent benefit series of books, because personal independence payment is defined as a benefit for people with a disability or long-term health condition. And you can find out what it may mean for you in the title itself. Now, of course, CPAG describes this 150-page manual as a popular guide to personal independence payment. That's exactly what it is. And it tells you all you need to know about the benefit in a clear, accessible, and easy to follow way. And that's very much the hallmark of what CPAG actually produces. It's an essential guide which has been updated to include all the changes since its introduction in April 2013, and that includes transfers from disability living allowance, so that the new edition includes information on who is entitled to the benefit and how to claim it. And as I say, some of the books have a straightforward statement how to use this book. You'll find that information is a little way into chapter 1, so that will at least assist you in what the purpose of the book is and how you use it. As is to be expected, of course, there are plenty of practical tips and examples, and the box there is help. John Shaw, the author, who's a welfare rights worker, as I say, for CPAG in Scotland, has updated all the essential information you need in one quick and comprehensive guide, which follows the house style very much of CPAG publications and uses for, all the people involved. The work's available for anybody who wants to know about how to claim a payment, whether for oneself or somebody else. And the format is both simple and precise, setting out the process and explaining how you are assessed and what the qualifying conditions are. And there are plenty of examples throughout the book giving the reader illustrations on how the rules apply in practice for claimants facing different conditions. I think that's very helpful for those independent users of the book who have not got access to an advisor. So what CPAG gives us here is advice on what may affect you if you are currently receiving a disability living allowance. It's a manual which sets out what happens if you go into hospital or a care home and how personal independence payment can be a passport to other benefits, because we do have to look at the overall picture. And of course you're not necessarily going to get that much help from people, so you've got to be a little bit proactive, and these books are great for that. The guide also gives you an explanation of what to do if your condition changes and the way in which you can challenge a decision which you do not agree with. And we found the comprehensive index, which is the back, most helpful to find the information you're seeking. It's not a very large index, but this should enable you to find things pretty quickly. And as the author says, it's essential to be well prepared. A first-class piece of advice, and that's exactly what this book gives you here. The payment is gradually replacing the disability living allowance for adults under 65 years of age, and to receive the payment you should complete a detailed questionnaire, again very complex and worrying for a lot of people, and generally attend a face-to-face assessment. The interviews can be daunting, of course, because generally held view that the fewer people will qualify in the future, so the guide should be something any claimant may wish to read prior to making a claim, and I would advise you to do so. These books are not expensive. This one is £15. It's not a lot of money in my view for the advice given in it, and again, if you can't even afford that, it should be available in your public library. That's the reference library, of course. Let me conclude by saying that I really do think these books are first class. They do help us because that's the purpose behind what the charity does. And to say this guide and its sister publications from CPAG improve the lives of low-income families is somewhat of an understatement. But the service which CPAG gives claimants is unmatched in its clarity and effectiveness as fundamental support devices for the vulnerable during what are testing times in this decade of austerity. Obviously there are massive changes afoot in Britain, leaving the EU, a lot of computerisation and digitisation quite quickly, and I think we are going to see with the beginning of the fourth industrial revolution some very big changes in society. It does of course mean that you've all got to be certainly computer literate, and you really have got, you can use advisors, but you've got to know quite a lot yourself. You've got to start from quite a high base point. I have to say that sadly, and I'm an old guy having to relearn a lot of stuff myself. The law is as stated in 2016, and so you've got some idea. I'm recording this book, this review, in 2017. Let me just go through the contents again. You can see the structure. Introduction, who can get PIP, claims assessments, getting paid, meeting the assessment criteria, and so on. I do think people in special circumstances as well worth looking at. Of course, the glossary, the meaning of terms and the sources are also very helpful. The sources, let me just show you what we mean by that. The sources are actually pieces of legislation. And then in the book, if I just open it in the middle, this is the daily living activities. There we go. You see the structure of the book. It's relatively easy to follow. Again, I'd like to thank all concerned. You make our lives a lot easier as advisors, people who are political, trying to fathom some of the problems. In other words, I've been elected myself. I didn't have that much by way of allowance issues, but I do think it's very helpful for a very wide market. And of course, that's what CPAG do. Do support them and get the book. Thank you to all concerned. Bye-bye.